first guest is from interview number 3, way back in May. Please welcome back from Paper Nova, Christiana Wu.
Yo, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Christiana?
Good. Ready to rock.
Awesome. Okay. My second guest is from interview number 5, also from May. Please welcome back pop singing sensation Mariah Belgrod.
Hello.
Hi, Mariah. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great seeing you. And my third guest is from interview number 18, which I believe was in June. Please welcome back from the Olympic Ballet Theater, Anisa Sinteral. Anisa.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Yeah, so like we were talking pre-show, this is something that's going to be just hanging out and having fun. And like I mentioned, I'm a couple beers in. So anyone out there that's in the chat right now, actually, I don't see the chat going right now, but cheers to you, Kampai, Prost, Skol, all those kind of things. And if you're not into alcohol, that's totally fine. If you're into water or chocolate milk, like some people, that works too. No pressure here whatsoever. So we're just going to kind of hang out and let me ask the group here. So with Christiana and Mariah and Anisa, do you want me to start with something kind of easy, or do you want me just to jump into the deep end and kind of go for it?
What are you all feeling?
I mean, I'm ready.
Yeah. Anything goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're here to have fun. Let's do it.
All right. Anything goes. So let's start off with something topical then. What the hell is demon sperm? Have you been paying attention to the news this week?
I have no idea what that is. Please enlighten me.
So that had to do with the doctor that was kind of saying that COVID-19 isn't really a thing. And then they started going through her background, and she started talking about that demon sperm comes from having dreams of sex with demons. And this is a doctor, a PhD, talking about these things. So they started picking through her background. And it's become a whole thing this week about with Trump about I'm safe from demon sperm. I'm safe from aliens. I'm safe from all this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm like, is that a porn thing? Is that what the hell is demon sperm?
I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to check it out afterwards and kind of be scared of what my Google search will come up with. But
yeah. Incognito, even though we know incognito does not really work.
Yeah, I mean, if 2020 couldn't get any weirder, I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out is just like, are you serious? But let's talk about, so like I mentioned to the guests earlier, I've got some questions that I found on the internet, but then today I actually found some more things, and I also came up with some more that are kind of, I think they're kind of interesting. But let's look at this one. What would be one of the coolest animals to upsize to the size of a horse? So if you can make it as big as a horse, what would you upsize?
I think I would do an Arctic seal, because that's my favorite animal, and I think they're so cute as plush little things, but and that's the cuteness factor of a lot of animals, is the size is small. But if you made an Arctic seal really big, I would just want to give it a really big hug. So that would be my answer.
Oh, that's awesome. Anyone else want to chime in or not? It's totally fine if you don't.
I can go with I kind of agree with trying to upsize a cute cuddly animal, so something even a duck, or we have beagles at home, and I think if we had a horse-sized beagle, it'd be kind of crazy, but be I could finally utilize that beagle for more than just hunting for rabbits.
Oh, I would probably go with a sheep. Can you imagine how much hair they'd have?
Yeah, that'd be a lot of hair.
So big, like a football or something.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I actually had an answer for this. What the hell was my answer? Too much beer already. I'll come back to it if I remember. Oh, this is so terrible. But those are awesome things. It makes sense to me. I remember back to a college story that I was in Central Washington, was kind of very rural. And so there was a horse pasture there. And my little dog at the time was probably about 15 pounds at most. And the first time I brought her over to my friend's house that had this horse pasture, she went right up to those horses, barking her head off and trying to do anything she could to get to those horses. And the horses were looking at her like, what the hell are you barking at? Because she was like, this tiny. So maybe I would take like what Christiana said. I would take that dog and make her into the size of a horse, so she could actually kind of be on an even heel with the size of the horses. Oh my gosh. This is okay. Here's something I found today, and it's really kind of interesting. Who was your childhood actor, actress crush? Is there anybody that you're like, oh man, I used to always think about so and so? I had pictures on my wall.
It was Legolas from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Nice.
I had a poster on my wall, on my closet, and I thought he was like Prince Charming. Like, even now, I still think that he was like the most beautiful man. He had a bow and arrow. He could do anything. And then this like long, pretty blonde hair. I was like, this is it. Like, that's everything is what I want.
That set the standard for you.
Yes. I loved him so much. I got a beta fish, and I named my beta fish Orlando. Like, it was,
That's awesome.
it was up there.
In the same vein, I actually had a giant crush on Johnny Depp. So, like, they kind of came together in Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
like,
yeah,
that was also mine, is Johnny Depp, because like there's that picture of him with like the slick back hair and the biker jacket on, and I just always am like, that is the man.
That's awesome. I guess if I participate in this, then gosh, I have to go way back. I have to go further back than you guys. Let's see. I know. It would have been Olivia Newton-John right after Grease came out. I was a big Kiss fan, so one of the magazines I used to buy was actually kind of geared towards girls. It was called 16 Magazine, but they had Kiss stuff in it every month. But then I remember turning the pages and I saw this picture of Olivia Newton-John. I was kind of like, oh, who's this? And so it was really trippy for me in 2017 to actually meet her in person. So I was kind of flashing back to how I used to look at her as a young person. I'm like, here she is all these years later, and she was super nice and a sweetheart. But that would be my answer for one of my earliest crushes. There's probably actually several, but I won't get into that. Now, here's something I know I have something to say, but I'm going to be last. What weird quirks did you pick up from your parents? Anybody?
I would say, so like, my family is so quirky. But like my mom, I just like weird things of like, I have to know where things are. Like, if I have to like check to make sure like my debit card's in my wallet or my ID's in my wallet. My mom and I were just talking about this, like I'll be laying in bed at like 3 a.m. and be like, where's my birth certificate? Like, just, I have anxiety. So it just like comes up, I'm like, where's my birth certificate? I'm like, why am I thinking about this at 3 a.m? So just like weird things of just like popping in my brain of like having to know where like important things are and like make sure they're safe. That was my, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
that's a tough one. Oh, go ahead.
I don't even know. You have to go, because my brain is coming up with nothing, and I know there's something.
I just think of like little things where I think it's like where I think it's kind of like a cardinal rule or something, where like I remember my parents when they would go grocery shopping, at an Asian supermarket, and like they would go try to find a ripe watermelon, and they'd go around slapping all the watermelon, and I'm like, is that like what other people do? Like I would see other people in the store slapping the watermelons too. And I was like, I don't know if that's like a quirk or if that's just like a trick, to figure out, still finding that right sound. And then it's like, okay, well, I can eat that watermelon today, like those little things, like little things in the kitchen like that, or in the stores.
Okay.
I still got nothing.
Okay. That's okay.
My brain has come up blank.
I'll jump into this because maybe both of my parents are watching this right now. I don't know, but one thing that other people have pointed out to me, my family, my friends, even coworkers, students, when I used to teach, was that I talk with my hands a lot. And I got that directly from my mom. So sometimes my family members will start doing this to me because they're making fun of the fact that my hands are always doing this. And I definitely picked that up from my parents. I would say probably the other thing is that our family, my immediate family, we tend to make fun of each other. So like that super lovey, huggy type of family, that's not us at all. You'll know that you're being accepted into our family if we make fun of you on some, kind of on a nice level, not on a malicious level, but just something kind of like, hey, now you have a nickname. That means you're in, basically. So that's something I've picked up from my parents, because I kind of pass it on. Like when I was working with students, I try to find something that kind of fit them if they're a sports person or a musician or whatever. But that's kind of my 2 cents on that one.
It's like an initiation to join your family. It's like, now you got a nickname. You're one of us.
You reminded me. So my family, no one knows each other's names. Like everyone you meet, everyone you come in contact with, it's like almost your name, but not quite. So like anytime my dad was so bad. Anytime I ever brought over like a guy and be like, yeah, this is like, we're kind of going on a date. He'd be like, oh yeah, Fabio. And his name would be like Derek. And he would call him that for the entire time, no matter what. And now I have a hard time with names. Like I'll see people and I'll like have their name like Mark. I'll be like, yeah, his name is like Martin. And I'll leave it as that forever. And it'll be almost there, but not quite. And I have such a hard time. I don't know what it is.
Well, there you go. So you can kind of trace that one back to your parents then, for sure. Let me look down this list real quick here. Okay. Do you have a quote unquote, my coworkers are weird or crazy story? Any place you've worked? I have one, so I can definitely start while you guys are thinking if you want. So I worked this place in South Seattle, and it's definitely on the weird category, kind of like, what are you doing? And so I was, there's 4 of us coworkers in this rectangular kind of office in the basement. And I remember coming through the door one day, and I look at my coworker, and he's like 6'4", and he's standing on a desk trying to maneuver the tiles in the ceiling. So I'm like, what are you doing? And he turned around really quick and saw me because he thought nobody was down there. And he's like, Mark, don't say anything. And so I'm like, are you planting a bomb in there? Or what the hell are you doing? So he finished what he was doing, and then he got down. And so he's like, dude, you can't tell anyone about this. I'm like, I want to know what you're doing up there because I don't know exactly what you stuck up there. And he's like, just tell me and promise me you won't tell anyone what I'm about to tell you. I'm like, okay, I promise. So he was married. This is really kind of awful when you think about it. He had mementos from his past relationships that he refused to get rid of. And instead of keeping them in his house where his wife might find them, he stuck them up in the ceiling of our office to hide them from her. That's a true story.
Dang.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a weird thing. So he doesn't live in this country anymore, so he's probably not going to see this.
Either way, it'll stay safe with all of us and everyone watching.
Exactly. And on YouTube and every other social media platform.
Yeah, I think most of my jobs, I work as a musician now, and then I was a nanny. So a lot of my jobs I worked by myself, and then the one job I had with other people was in a bank. So it wasn't too much craziness going on there.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Anybody else? A lot of crickets. Bueller, anyone?
For me, dancers as a whole, working with different companies and stuff, they really do sometimes on stage, you wouldn't know this, but they all like to talk. So unanimously, it would be you would be on stage and someone would be doing this really heartfelt solo and really beautiful, and they would turn around to the core girls and be talking and being I'm so hungry, I can't wait to go get dinner after this. And then they turn back to the audience and it's that immediate smile. It's just things like that. Everyone just, I don't know, it was just all the talking on stage and being yourself, but also being a character, and then kind of the facade of the auditorium and what you're actually presenting versus what you're doing backstage.
Yeah, that whole kind of inside thing that only the dancers would know, that the audience doesn't have a clue is going on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Christiana, anything come to mind, or you want me to move on?
Like a strange or weird thing. I mean, I've dealt with one really dark occurrence before. I don't know if if I should talk about it that much, but
it's completely up to you. It's really up to you.
Sure. I mean, since I already kind of teased it, right? So might as well talk about it. I mean, I used to work for the U.S. Postal Service, and there was one incident where I'm trying to figure out if I should backtrack or not, but there was an incident where someone that I was working with ended up passing away, and I was responsible for handling her route. So she sat on a particular stool, and I had to take over that stool afterwards. And the thing was, the reason why she passed away was because she was pretty much affected by one of her family members. And so that's what happened. Definitely a really weird, strange time, because it was very tragic. But I always think back to that and just wonder, what could it have been? How could it have been different? Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's kind of almost like in a way, especially since someone passed away, it's kind of like that whole survivor's guilt of
Totally.
What happened, a lot of what if scenarios can come up. What if this had happened, or what if I wasn't here and I didn't have to deal with this? And then you kind of have that whole kind of shadow hanging over you of what, she used to be there and now you're in her spot and taking over her stuff. So no, that's got to be super, super heavy and kind of mess with you for a bit, I would think.
Oh yeah, it affected everyone, obviously in the company, in that particular workplace. But it was just one of those things where I was wasn't really friends with her, didn't really know her that well, but I was responsible for taking over her duties kind of afterwards. And that was probably the weirdest workplace story that I have. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, for sure.
Yeah,
That's
seriously.
I'm sure that wasn't necessarily easy for you. So let me see. I'm kind of looking at something here to kind of flip flop from that.
Something lighter.
Yeah. Okay, there's one. What's one of the best concerts you've been to, and why was it so good? Anybody?
My first concert was Bryan Adams and Def Leppard. And we sat pretty close to, I think we were in the fourth row. And then they got a drumstick and a guitar pick thrown at us to take home. So I think that was the first time I was wow, I could be doing that someday, because I was starting to get into music. I was 8 years old. So I was just I can just still see myself just looking up there and all these people singing along with the music they wrote and being just in awe. And they put on a really good show. I mean, especially for their age, they've been around in the industry for a long time, and they still were rocking on. So
that's awesome. That's awesome that was your first experience. Plus, it was such a good one too. So it kind of put you on that path of
yeah,
hey, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I went to, so they had this concert in Colorado. It's called Big Gig. And it's basically a huge venue where they hire out multiple acts. And you go there and it's in a lawn setting, it's outdoors. And I went, and the big headline was, oh my gosh, what is the name? Panic at the Disco. But they were there, and everyone was this is going to be great. But 21 Pilots came out, and Joshua Dunn, he did before they got really big and blew up, it was he came out and he was doing backflips off of the piano. They pulled out a set where they had in the front, they had huge platforms with drums on them, and they held them out, someone in the audience held them, and they jumped onto these platforms, both of them. And then the lights and strobe lights were going, and they had water coming down, and they were hitting the drums. So the water was going everywhere. And I remember I was back there and I was who are these people? This is crazy. It was so good. And I've gone to 3 other concerts after that for 21 Pilots, and I loved it. They were so much better than Panic at the Disco. They stole the cake for me. It was amazing.
Awesome. Christiana, anything come to mind?
Oh yeah. I think one of the coolest shows that I've been to, and I didn't really start going to shows until I was later in my years, was the Nine Inch Nails concert that came here, I don't know, like many years ago, to the Tacoma Dome. And I specifically remember I believe it was like either a rectangular or circular stage, might have been the circular stage, but there was a circular screen around the stage of LED. So it was, an array of LEDs, and it all lit up and stuff. And they had like all these different patterns and stuff that just started to play on that screen. And there was one particular effect that was so cool. Like it looked like a 3D box was just circling around the stage, but it was all obviously 2D on that screen. And it was just like, it was amazing. Like I was just like struck, because I was like, this is like, not only was it just audibly really like amazing, but just visually I was like, wow, like there's so much production value in this concert, and that was really fun.
Awesome. No, that's one band I have not seen, so I'm envious of you. For myself, holy moly, I think one concert that really stands out that I think a lot of people are kind of surprised by for me was that, being a metalhead, I was into all these metal shows from like 1979 through the 80s. But then I got really, really, really into the Eurythmics in the mid 80s. And for the Revenge album in 1986, they came to the Seattle Coliseum, which is now Key Arena, which is now that climate change, whatever. And I really didn't think they were going to be very good, based on being a pop kind of act. And it's just Dave and Annie. And I'm like, they're not going to be as good as the metal bands I like. And holy shit, that concert really changed my life. I remember they had a whole black curtain with a zipper, and they played this weird like Chinese music over the PA. And so then the lights slowly went down as the zipper got pulled down to unveil the stage. And they had the most eclectic group of musicians I've ever seen. They had Chucha Merchant, I remember, on bass, who was like from South America. And they had Janice Jameson on background vocals, and Patrick Seymour on keyboards, and Clem Burke from Blondie on the drums, and David Annie, of course. And I remember I was standing on my feet the entire time. I was way in the back for the show, and I was just mesmerized by that show. And it couldn't have been better, and it completely spun me in a different direction in terms of not just being a metalhead, but also listening to some of these other kinds of bands. I was so glad I went to that show. It still stays with me to this day, and that's why Annie Lennox is still on my bucket list of interviews. If I ever got a chance to talk to her, I would probably pass out from being so excited. So yeah, there's nothing like the concert experience, and hopefully at some point we get back to it. Obviously, we can't do it right now, but somewhere down the road we'll get back to it. So, okay. I'm only laughing about this. Some of these questions, I swear, like somebody on the internet wrote them for me. Like they knew. Let's have Mark ask these things. Okay, if you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you've done? I'll start this off because I already have something in my head. I think, and again, some of my family's probably watching this right now. I think they would assume that I probably robbed something because I always need money. So if it's a bank or a business or something, they know I would not want to do that. But if desperate times call for desperate measures, and if they got a phone call that your son's down in the whatever precinct, they're probably like, what did he do? And then they probably start thinking about it and think, man, that ding dong probably robbed somebody because he needed money to pay bills or pay whatever. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
I think for me, I probably would get into a fight because I'm very non-confrontational physically because I'm very unskilled on that front. But like, I feel like if there's somebody that's like says something wrong or, says something off color or like they get on my nerves or something, it's like, I just, and especially if it's very like conflicting and it's obvious that they're doing something wrong, it's like, oh, I wish that, I could get into like some sort of like duel with them, with like swords or like lightsabers or whatever, instead of like trying to fight with words, because, that's what we're supposed to do these days is like try to like fight with our words. But yeah, sometimes it's not effective. So I think I would get arrested for assaulting somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Mariah or Anisa, anything you want to add?
Probably something with like protesting. Like, there's been so many protesters recently, unfortunately.
Sure.
So I think something out there and, being in an environment, maybe wrong place, wrong time type thing, something like that would definitely be where you would hear that coming from.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Anisa, anything you want to add?
Probably in the same vein. I think that I'm somebody that is the same. I'm not very confrontational, but there is a point where like I don't back down. Like I'll be like, yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're going. You're going. Let's go. So, and then I think my parents would be like, did you win?
Nice.
You didn't back down though, right? I'd be like, no, I did it. Well, hopefully, if it did happen.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Oh my God. What was I going to say here? Okay, here's another one that kind of goes back to, since we're talking about family, and Anisa just mentioned family. What is one funny or weird thing you did as a kid that your parents still talk about to this day? Or maybe it could be one incident too that maybe you did as a kid. That's what I'm thinking for myself.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. One time I was babysitting, so I'm one of 5, and I had my 2 younger sisters and my younger brother, and like for some reason we had this idea to like move the furniture around, which ended up being like we're gonna ride the mattresses down the staircases. And it was like, all right, let's get everybody in here. Totally, there's not gonna be any problem. And it was me and then my next youngest sister. She's like a year apart. And we got my little brother, and he was probably like maybe 8 or 7 at the time. So we like tried to like strap him in because like, you get some momentum and like he could just slide out. So we were like, all right, we got him. Easy, like no problems are gonna happen. We got there, we start going down the slide, and my sister's foot goes through the wall. And we were like, oh my gosh. And since I was like babysitting and it was my idea, I like called my dad and I was like, hey, so we were moving furniture and there's a hole in the wall, the mattress fell and it went through the wall. And he was like, how big is it? Is it the size of like your foot? And I was like, exactly the size of Cassidy's foot. So it was so bad.
Oh my gosh. Anyone else want to chime in?
When I was younger, and I have 2 older brothers, and they are like closer in age. Like my oldest brother is 10 years older than me. So I was always like, I felt a little bit left out because I was a little sibling. I was the only girl, but they were like kicking a soccer ball and then they wouldn't let me play. So I started crying, and we were at my grandma's, and she had this garden with like a bench, but like the bench connected to where her plants were planted. So I sat down and I sat on a cactus.
Oh,
like it was horrible. Like, so I sat on a cactus, and then my grandma had to like pull little spines on my butt, but I was like 8 years old, and then I went to school and I had to like lay on the floor. I couldn't sit in a chair, and everyone made fun of me. So my family like still is always like, just go sit on a cactus, Mariah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's too bad that happened.
Yeah. Struggle is real.
Christiana, anything you want to add before I tell my story?
I mean, I've got nothing except for my parents still to this day make fun of me for being creative and being an artist. So it's like, because they wanted me to be a lawyer, doctor, or engineer growing up. So, that's the constant struggle.
Okay. Yeah, no. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that for sure. And so like in my case, okay, at the end of the hallway in my parents' house where I grew up, there used to be this, there was a piggy bank that was like a polar bear. So it was white and it's made out of some kind of really heavy material. So it was, pretty, a good sized weight to it. And my bedroom was right next to that piggy bank. And so me being the brainiac that I was, I don't know how old I was, probably in single years still, that at 9 o'clock, you got to go to sleep, especially if it's a school night or whatever. And I was just infatuated with the eyes in that piggy bank of that polar bear. I just thought they looked really cool for some. This might be kind of creepy for some of you. I just really love those eyes. So I remember I went to bed and my parents were out in the living room watching TV. And I snuck back out of my room. I took a flathead screwdriver and I started trying to chip away at the eye, trying to get the eye out of this piggy bank, thinking that they're not going to hear me. And then all of a sudden, I think they turned the light on to the hallway, and I'm down there like kind of like this. Either my mom or my dad like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I almost got that eye out. And they told me to stop whatever I was doing and go back to bed. And to this day, it still comes up about like, Mark's always been weird. Remember that time when he was trying to get the eyeball out? I remember I think I also tried to cut out the president out of some sort of, I don't know if it was a dollar bill or a $10 bill or something. So I've always been that kind of person that I was a little off kilter even when I was a young kid. So if they're watching this now, they're probably like, "Oh yeah."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, strange things.
You all have good stories, and mine are just like depressing sometimes. I gotta like change it up.
Well, maybe you can have some news stories when you're on your staycation next week.
Oh yes, yeah, totally.
There you go.
There we go. Here's something just in general. So, what was the last thing you did that you considered fun? On any level, obviously, fun can mean all kinds of things.
I mean, kind of given the quarantine situation, we've been very like carefully choosing who to hang out with and who to see, whether it's like some family members or some friends. And just a few weeks ago, we were able to go and hang out with our friends, Jeff and Shar, and their son, Leo. And it was just like a really chill barbecue. And then after that barbecue was done, we decided to go hang out in their music room and just jam for a little bit. And that was really fulfilling. And it was really nice to do that after, the considerable amount of time that we don't really get to see as many people. So that was really nice.
Yeah, no, it sounds really nice.
Yeah, I think there's like a new definition of fun now. Like I feel like such small things are fun. Like if I cook a dinner with my fiance or something, like, and just having quality time. COVID has really put things into perspective for me to just like enjoy just like the more simplistic aspects and like the people I'm sharing things with, as opposed to like the more materialistic aspects of my life. So like, yeah, just like cooking a new meal or like making Rice Krispie treats from scratch or something. It's just like super fun. And then like bringing them over to our friend's house and socially distancing and leaving them on the porch or something. It's just like those small things are awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that makes sense completely. Anisa, anything you want to add?
When I was in Salt Lake, seeing my boyfriend and hang out with my other friends, Becky Ann and Chase, we all like made dinner every night and we would make pasta. And my friend Chase has like really long arms. So he's like the ultimate pasta rack. Like he makes the homemade noodles, but he's like so long that he can hold them all. And it was really, really like the same. It was just like making dinner at home. And I don't know, been playing like a lot of video games, like Overwatch all the time. It's just really fun.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah. And like what Mariah was saying, that, the definition of fun has definitely changed during the pandemic. And for myself, obviously being on this tour with Alice since May 22nd has been something I wasn't expecting. And it's been such a, really in many ways a life-changing event. I mean, in some cases, like with the folks here, some people I knew, some people I didn't know prior to doing this, kind of like Anisa, I'm looking at you right now, and we didn't know each other. And I think one thing that makes me, when I consider fun and or happy, when I'm kind of like, yes, is when, and this hasn't changed since pre-pandemic to now, is that when I'm trying to get somebody as a guest to come on for any level of time, whatever I'm trying to do, if I get credentialed for a concert back, pre-pandemic days or whatever, and in this case, trying to get a certain guest. And when I finally get a yes, I'm kind of like super happy. I'm super happy about certain things. And that's not to say that I'm not happy about every guest, but there's certain ones like I got to go through a publicist, a manager, God, people just to make this happen. And when I finally jump through the 12th hoop or whatever it is, and they finally say, yes, Mark, we'll do this on this day at this time. I'm like, hell yeah, I finally got somebody.
Victory, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me feel good. And those things, you take them wherever you can get them, for sure. And it might seem silly to others, but to me, it's like, man, it's so great. And then I start worrying about, are they actually going to show up? Are they actually going to do it? But that's a whole other thing. But it makes me feel really good when I have an opportunity to do this kind of thing. Even like talking with all three of you tonight, it's just exactly what I wanted it to be. We're just kind of hanging out and talking about stuff, and I'm seeing people on the Twitch chat are talking about other things, about concerts they went to, and all kinds of other shit that's going on. So that's great. Okay, let me see. I had something else that I was looking at really quick. Oh, and this one might be kind of quick, but what is the strangest name, first or last, of a person you knew? So it just kind of seemed kind of odd when you heard it, either the first name or the last name. Because I had a student that I can tell a story about, but I'll let you guys kind of see if you can think of anybody that you have come across that the name was kind of unique.
Oh, I definitely.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
You.
I mean, like, it was just like a really casual thing. Like, when I was working at a company before, I used to work in for a tech company that sold touchscreen chips. So I would travel for business to China sometimes, and there was one particular guy that had an English name, and it was like the perfect name related to touchscreen chips. His English name was Feeling You.
Oh.
Oh my gosh,
it was so perfect. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's too perfect. Anisa, I think you had something you wanted to add in?
I mean, okay. Here's the thing. It came up as a story of like, and like you have your name and then people make fun of you for your name. And like kids are so mean and they twist it into whatever. And the only one I can think of is that I know this person. Their last name is Merkovich, and everyone changed it to Merkovich.
Oh.
And that was, I mean, like, it was just so bad. And like, we got into this whole discussion about like the play on names and how kids are, and like how if you have a child in some way, you have to like think of the other names that coincide with it and what will happen. And I don't know. That's the best I got.
Okay, no, that fits the bill. Mariah, anything you want to add?
I can't really think of anything. I mean, like, I'm from an Amish community. Like, I'm not Amish, but I was raised in like an Amish town with Amish people. And like, there are a lot of different names that are like biblical, like Dorcas or Jebediah or Ezekiel. And like, those are not like names that you really find anywhere else in the country. But I can't really think of anything else. Like, there were some names that I was just like, man, if like someone went to school named Dorcas in like high school, like it would not be good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know for myself, again, for people that have been watching these interviews, they know at one point in another lifetime, I was a teacher. And I still remember that when I was in South Seattle, I had, so when students were getting referred to me, I would get their file and I was looking at it and I saw the name. I was kind of like, is that right? And so the student's name was I'm Unique, one word. That was her first name. So you'd say, I'm unique. And I was kind of like, so I remember when she came in, she was like a really good kid. And I remember said, so how do you feel about your name? Obviously your parents gave you that name. She's like, I hate it.
Oh, no.
I hate it because people make fun of it. They're like, what kind of person came up with this name, to call you I'm Unique as your first name? But I just remember thinking, but it is kind of unique. I think that's what
like empowering too. When you would say it, like you're like I'm unique. You're like I am unique,
right?
Yeah.
Reminded every day about it.
Yeah, maybe she got to that point when she got into high school or college where she could actually embrace it instead of how she was when I had her as a middle schooler. So we're at 7:43, and what I want to do, even though I know the band told me I could take as much time as I wanted, let's kind of go to this one question to possibly end this, which is, if someone asked to be your apprentice and learn all that you know, what would you teach them? So more of a serious, well, it might be serious depending on what you decide to teach them.
I mean, okay, if I took it seriously, I would be like, that you're an amazing person. You can accomplish all of your dreams. You can do anything you put your heart to. Like, you got this in the bag. But my first thought when you asked that was be like, I'm going to bullshit them. And I'm going to create and try and teach them how to be a witch and a wizard and have powers and what you're going to do with your spells and who you can mess with and what you're going to do. And then maybe like along that, I would be teaching myself. Like, I'd be like looking at their spells we're doing together and be like, oh yeah, exactly. You're nailing it.
That's amazing.
I love that answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Mariah or Christiana, anything you want to add?
I think if I were to like teach someone like a skill I feel like I'm good at is either cooking, how to build a really awesome Animal Crossing island, or or just like in the realm of like professional, like how to build a really good brand and like connect with your fans or your supporters or your consumers, whatever. Like, I feel like that's something I've got a knack for understanding, and I love to learn about. So yeah, it's one of those three things.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Christiana?
Yeah, no, I want to visit your Animal Crossing island.
Yeah, let's connect. I'll send you my dodo code after this.
Yeah. Visit your dream, or get the dream.
Oh yeah, my dream address. Yeah.
Dream address. I think for me, like I automatically just thought of like, I could teach someone at least the beginnings of like indie filmmaking, and like combine a bunch of different, creative mediums within it, whether it's like writing or visual aesthetic or music or something like that, so just being able to mentor somebody to kind of start in that space, I'd feel really comfortable with.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect answer, really. For me, we probably don't have enough time in the day to kind of go through what I would probably try to pass on to an apprentice. I think my mentality all the time when I'm working with former models from way back when, or other people that I come across, students and other people, is that try to that balance of what I've been trying to find myself personally and how to pass it on to someone as an apprentice, of what they shouldn't lose sight of all these different factors, meaning that, yeah, it's great if you can, let's say you're starting a media outlet and you want to be a concert photographer. What are those steps to take those to kind of get where you want to go? But at the same time, not forgetting about your friends, your family, things that make you happy outside of that, and trying to find those balances, because I can speak, personally about how it just starts to consume you. And then if you have a day job, how do you find balance with that? And everything else that I've done that even now, as I'm talking about this right now, that I'm looking at this sheet over here where I keep a track of all these films I'm supposed to review in advance and when I'm supposed to publish them and all this kind of stuff. This is all brand new to me. And I look at the dates. I'm like, oh God, I have to do like 3 films in a day. When am I going to do this into my schedule? I'm on this tour right now. I've got these other commitments I'm supposed to be doing. And I think trying to pass on to an apprentice about how you find balance with that. And like I mentioned to all of you pre-show, I'm starting to exercise now. I'm getting outside and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And just saying, this is what's important. Don't lose sight of the fact that, yeah, your eye is on the prize. Don't forget about this other stuff. It's really, really important. Even like my guest yesterday about scheduling time to just relax. Put 2 hours on your schedule. Don't do a damn thing. Yeah. It's so important. It's so important.
It really is.
Yeah, I think we all agree, especially during this time when we're all under different levels of stress in a given day, that you've got to find that time, because that's what recharges your battery, so that you can deal with another day that's coming in the future. And that's some of the small things I would do. I could get on my soapbox forever and talk about stuff. So I know I'm kind of going long, but let's actually finish up with this, because we talked about this pre-show. If you had to come up with a name for the 3 of you as an artistic entity, what would you pick? What would your name be for the 3 of you, Mariah, Anisa, and Christiana? That's how we're going to wrap this up. What do you think the 3 of you should be called?
I have no idea.
Go ahead. No, you first. You keep on like giving it. Oh, go ahead, Anisa.
Okay, well, I mean, okay. I thought Professor Eclectic and the Quarantinas.
Ooh, okay. I like that. Going off your like wizardry.
Yeah, and kind of
Yeah.
like Professor Utonium from Powerpuff Girls, but Professor Eclectic, because that's how we all came together. We're all in quarantine, you know. And then
There you go.
Super poetic. Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Anybody else have anything they want to throw out there?
I was gonna it's gonna be super cheesy, but I was like I was like thinking of immediately, oh, Charlie's Angels, but then we're based off of like the demon sperm thing earlier. Maybe we're Mark's Devils. I don't know.
Nice. I like that too.
Yeah, no, that works for me. Mariah, did you have anything that popped into your mind?
No, nothing did. I don't think I can top those two. Those are good.
All right. So Mariah, Christiana, Anisa, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this inaugural fun table. Hopefully you had some level of fun. Hopefully people out there that are watching had some level of fun. And I can let everybody know that this isn't the only one that I'm going to be doing. I've got at least one, possibly two more of these coming up. Tomorrow on Saturday, I'll go back to my normal interview area where you won't see all this shit behind me. I purposely did that, obviously. But I hope everyone out there, if you can't tune in, that you have a great weekend, you stay safe. And for all three of the guests, again, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I hope that you have great weekends and that I'll see you probably sooner than later in some cases.
See you. Thank you so much for having us. It was so nice to meet you ladies too.
Yes.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Take care and have a good night.
Bye.
Night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.